you ever used another acronym? I used it for home, like for the Great Lakes, like Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, and Superior, homes. Did you have one for planets too? No, like, do you play piano?
I used to.
You used to? Did you have it for like every good boy does fine or something for the letters of the notes? Okay, you ready for your favorite acronym? How do you say it? Acronym, thank you.
Yeah.
Ever, this is going to be your favorite one. The C stands for corresponding. The P stands for parts. The next C stands for congruent. The T stands for triangles. And the C stands for congruent.
I'm sorry, I think I'm missing my sheet.
Oh, they're back there.
Oh.
Yep. There's two, so take both. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Okay, so say it. Are you with me? Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Okay, so let's just look at this middle first example, number 1. Okay, so if you look at these two triangles, let's pretend that we're day 1 of these 4 things, okay? We have a side congruent to a side. So what letter would you put down on the little resource sheet or the cheat sheet? You put a S. Agree? You have another 2 arcs over here and another 2 arcs over there. Those are angles are congruent, so what letter would you put down? An A. Excellent. And then you have a 1 arc, and then you have a 1 arc. And so what letter would you put down? A. Now, you have 2 A's and an S. So you come over to the side, you go, okay, if you've got 2 A's and an S, you're either going to be ASA or AAS. Is the side included or in between the 2 angles? And you would say, no way, Jose. So then these 2 triangles are congruent by what reason? A. Okay, so let's fill that in. They are congruent congruent for AAS. Now, there are 3 things that we used. We used an angle, and a side, an angle, and a side. We used 3, but there are 6 total. Agree? So if you think about it, if I have AAASSS, I've used these 2 A's and I've used that S, let's say. So there's 3 things that we did not use to prove the triangle's congruent. Does that make sense? Yes or no? We didn't use these 3 with the arrows. But this theorem says, are the triangles congruent? How are the triangles congruent? AAS. Then all the leftover parts that are corresponding that we didn't talk about, after the triangles are congruent, all the leftover corresponding parts are going to be congruent. Because I could have done the proof using all 6. Does that make sense? Who are the leftover parts I did not talk about? We've got 1 A and 2 S's. What's one couple that I did not talk about? Give me the A. Who's the A? Angle H is congruent to who? Okay, fill him in. Angle H, congruent to angle M. He's one person I didn't talk about. Okay, who's the side that I didn't talk about? Madeline, what would you like?
Side EY is equal to side AN.
Oh, EY is congruent to AN. Beautiful job. Beautiful. Can you do the other side?
Side HY.
Excellent.
And congruent to MN.
Congruent to MN. Those are the pieces I did not use to prove triangles congruent, but the theorem says, hey, they are congruent. Do you agree? We're going to do it again one more time. Scroll up. Example number 2. Let's go through it again. and see how those triangles are congruent. Okay, so everybody, I've got a side congruent to a side, so I put an S down. I've got an angle congruent to an angle, so I put a what down, everybody? An A. I've got another angle congruent to another angle, so I put a A down. Now I've got two A's and an S to see how these triangles are congruent. So two A's and an S. Is it angle side angle or angle side? Is the side in between? And it totally is. So the reason is angle side angle. Oh, they got a little mean. They didn't give you who the triangle statement is congruent to. Oh, we have to fill that in. Okay, they gave us the first one, CAT. So who would C match up with in his partner congruent triangle? Everybody. R. Oh, keep going. What? A, and then what? P. That was really good. Okay, who are the three pieces, because we only use 3, out of the total 6. So who are the 3 that we did not use? Reese, give me one. Angle T and angle P, any order. Excellent. Okay, there's your third final angle. So we have 2 S's to go. Who are the 2 sides that we did not talk about? Shannon, what would you like? CT, RP. Excellent. You want to do the other one? AT and AP, again in any order. That was really good. Okay, you ready to see how we use it in a proof? Ready? Okay. Let's go to number 3. We're going to follow the same path we did since day 1 of these congruent triangles. So go ahead, draw your statements and your reasons. Just write the word given, and we're going to go slow together. Okay, so if this was on the quiz on Friday, you would look at this, and the thing that's different is the proof statement. The proof statement is totally changed. The proof statement usually would have triangle something like ABC congruent to triangle something like XYZ. Agree? And you would finish your proof statement by one of these reasons up here. But they don't have that. They have a part. So what they're going to do, what you're going to do, and what we're going to do is still follow the same procedure. We're still going to prove triangles congruent. So we go and we do our first given. AC is congruent to AR. I go over to my markings, and it's a side congruent to a side. So I put those tick marks in, and I put the letter what up here? S. Then the second given, angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. I go over to angle 1. I put an arc, and I put an arc on angle 2, and I go put an A up at the top. So I want you to pretend like your proof statement is exactly the same as last week. Exactly the same as last night. So you've got 2 letters, you need one more. So you go to your resource sheet, you start at the top. What's number 1 say to look for? Do you see vertical angles? And we would put a what, a 5 and a 6? So we'll put a 5 and a 6. And so number 2 would be angle 5 is congruent to angle 6 because all vertical angles are congruent. Agree? I come up and put another what up here? Put another A. Okay, I've got the 3. So I'm done. I'm finished. The triangles are congruent. What's the reason with 2 A's and 1 S? Is it AAS or ASA? What is it? Is the side in between or not in between? The side is not in between the 2 angles. So it's going to be AAS, right? This is the hardest part for me. Bless you.
Thank you.
We have to come up with our own triangle congruent statement. And so I just pick a triangle and write the 3 letters down, CAL, and then I just match it up. So I start by picking a triangle and randomly just putting 3 letters down. I just chose the left triangle and chose CAL. So then I have to match it up. So who is C gonna match up with on the other side? R would have to go first. Who is A gonna match up with? A, excellent. And then L matches with who? S. So you could have this, but Shannon could have written LAC congruent to triangle SAR. Does that make sense? It does not matter as long as her matchup is absolutely perfect in the sense of L matches with S. Sound good? Are the triangles congruent? Yeah. Then the part that's left over, is this a part left over? It is a part left over. Did I talk about angle 3 or angle 4? No. Then the theorem says that the parts, there are 3 parts, any of them left over are congruent, because once you tell me the triangles are congruent, that any part left over is also congruent by the silly reason Cpctc. And you're finished. So the Cpctc will follow the AAS, SSS, SAS all the time. It'll follow HL. It'll come right after it. So how are these proofs different? Instead of triangles congruent, it's one of the parts that you're not going to talk about in the triangle congruent, and the theorem says those parts are just as congruent as the rest of them.
Could you put like third angle theorem if you wanted to say the reason right for?
Yeah, you could on that one, and it would not be wrong. Absolutely. Gosh, you wouldn't even need this, would you? No, you would not. So you'd be fine. Yep, nice job. Ready to go to the back? That's really good. That's really good. Okay, let's go to number 4. Okay, number 4, statements. Boy, that was really good. I like that. Okay. This one's just nasty because they didn't put numbers in, isn't it? So you got to go find these. Angle NLM means you start at N, go to L, and go to M, and then is congruent to L and O. So those 2 angles. What letter can I put? Excellent. The second given says angle OLN is congruent to MNL. Would be OLN, MNL. If you have trouble with that, let me know. Does anybody have trouble with the 3 letters? You gotta follow the path. And your vertex is the most important. Okay, I am finished with my given. So when I'm finished with my given, I look up and I go to my resource sheet and I say, oh, okay. Then I start with vertical angles. Are there any vertical angles? No. Then third angle theorem. I could use it, couldn't I? Okay. Then number 3. Do you see the reflexive side? And what would I write for number 2? LN congruent to LN. Reflexive. I go put a tick mark in and I go put an S up on top. You have to rearrange the letters because it's 2 A's and an S. How are the triangles congruent? AAS or ASA? ASA. Okay, who's brave enough to do this? Triangle blah blah congruent to triangle blah blah. All right, now, what do you got?
Triangle LON.
Ooh, lawn. I like that.
Is congruent to, what is it? One sec.
Go by arcs. L's got 2 arcs.
NML.
NML. You said it beautifully. Excellent. Excellent. This is what takes me the longest to grade, that right there. because everybody's a little different, you know? There's some repeats, obviously, but I just gotta check it. Okay, so we're in the proof part, and angle M is congruent to angle O. We didn't use him. It's a leftover piece. And simply, why is it congruent, guys? C, P, C, T, it's like dragon teeth. C, yeah. I have congruent triangles. Yes, I do. Then all the corresponding parts that are left over are also congruent. Okay, you ready for 5? Again, notice the proof statement, leftover piece that we didn't use, probably. Leftover piece that we didn't use. I've got AC congruent to BC. I come over to the side, I mark the ticks, and I put an S up at the top. I come over to the second given, AX is congruent to BX. I come over and I mark AX congruent to BX, and I put another S at the top. I am out of given, totally out of given. I start at the top of the resource sheet and work my way down, but you obviously see what, everybody? Reflexive side. There's no perpendicular in there, is there? It may look perpendicular, but did anybody tell me they were perpendicular? No. So I'm going to just use the reflexive side. And CX is congruent to CX. I come over, I mark those with 3 ticks. Are the triangles congruent? By SSS. Excellent. Give me the triangle statement matchup. Okay. We got 2, only 2, 3. Okay, you match it up yourself. Write it down. Write down what you think, and then we'll see what it is. As long as your letters coordinate. Reese, give me what you had.
I have AXC and BXC.
Does your A go where your B is? Whether it be first, last, or third. Does your X's match? And do your C's match? If you have trouble, just take it and flip the left side, smush it on top of the right side. So A is going to sit on top of B, X is going to sit on himself, and C is going to sit on himself. Okay, we're finished with this. This is what we have to have congruent triangles. So angle 1 and angle 2, is it a leftover part? Absolutely. So angle 1 congruent to angle 2, Cpctc. Can they get a little harder? Yes. So we're going to stop right here, and we're going to do these basic ones for tonight. Does that sound good? Okay, did you pick up the other worksheet?